A crew sets sail in the ocean. They go in what they think is the right direction. However, they're off by 5 degrees, with everything looking exactly the same. I mean, water is flat and there's no real markers like a mountain. They think they're going in the right direction, but it's still off with 5 degrees. Let's say this specific crew does not have a GPS or a course corrector or some kind of a technology that can assist them to be on the correct course. When they reach their destination, they're off by 50 kilometers or more, depending on how far they went. The compound interest of that simple little mistake has put them off by an incredible amount. Think school geometry. Why am I starting a video off like this? Well, it's something that I found myself doing historically, and it usually came back to bite me. No, I was not a ship crewmate. I mean, these soft developer hands will never be able to do something so physically demanding. But what I have found myself doing is blindly jumping into a development or implementation without validating or confirming the requirements, and this sometimes come back with negative results. Micro requirements are those requirements that are so small and so unseeming that the BA or the project manager doesn't really bother with them. It's the type of requirement where you get called into a meeting at 3 on a Friday and they're like, we just need you to quick develop this report for us, it'll be great, and that's it. So the intent is usually that it's a very quick and easy thing to do, but because the requirements aren't specified clearly, things can go awry very quickly. I mean, you get called into that meeting without any prior context. There's no requirements documentation, there's no instructional email. It's just develop this thing for us and send it to us as quick as possible, thanks, cheers. And these things seem easy to do, and they usually are, like a quick little enhancement or just something very quick on the side. But it's very easy to miss it by simply a few degrees and all of a sudden, oh no, I missed it entirely, it's incorrect. And the knock-on effect on other projects can be monumental. I mean, now you need to spend time fixing the issue that you could have stopped from the start. You know, one of my favorite words, proactivity. So what? Should I do a full analysis phase here and do the business analysis and take over the BA's job, create a BRS, a FRS, and any of the other S's? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we need to clearly understand what we're working on before we start working on it. Our first reaction is to get the job done as quickly as possible so that we can move on to the next big thing. Because you've got a lot of things on your plate, and these smaller things can sometimes just feel like fluff, but they can have monumental value to the business users. Look, when you start building a house, it's always worth your while to invest into the foundation. Do we want to build something that's quick and that will have to be replaced within the next few months, or are we building something that will last and that can be enhanced on? If we put in effort at the start, then later on, that effort will repay in full. It can surely stop us from developing something that the user will never want, or missing the requirement, or simply having to go back and make those little micro changes that causes context switching, which adds delays onto your other work and adds a lot of pressure and anxiety. So how can we ensure that we are doing the right thing? I've got 3 steps for you. Step 1, identify what needs to be done. Step 2, validate what needs to be done. And step 3, do it. Step 1, identify what needs to be done. Alright, so let's say you get dragged into that meeting. You don't have any context of prior discussions and you only hear the base requirement, what the user wants. Now, you sprint to your PC, you rapidly start coding, you type everything down, you are at the peak of your performance. However, how do you know exactly what you are developing if the only thing you've been given is a sentence? Before we start with the implementation, we need to think of 3 things. What is the requirement? How will I implement it? And how will the user use it? I know there's a bunch of different other questions that you can ask, but for the simplicity of this video, let's only focus on those 3 items. When thinking of these 3 steps, we're able to break down the tasks into much more digestible steps. And we can also use this opportunity to populate that Jira ticket with the much needed information for record keeping, and it prohibits us from getting into some kind of an administrative quarrel with whatever admin person reads the tickets. For this, let's take an example of a simple micro requirement that you can be given to develop. Our client wants us to display user logins into X system on an automated report. I know it's but bear with me. For the first step, we need to identify what needs to be done. And our requirement tells us the following. We need a report that will display user logins. Fields on the report can include username, user details such as department, how many times they've logged in, what's the last date that they logged in, those kind of things. And since it's an automated report, we need to A, embed it into an email, or B, display it on some kind of a dashboarding system that you might use, depending on what methodology you're using at work. Now from this, we can clearly see that there are a few points that we need to clarify with the user and our manager. I mean, we need to find out what are the fields that are going to be displayed, what's the format they want to see it in, how many columns or what columns even they want to see on the report. Do I need to send it to an email? What is that email address? You get the detail. I'm trying to solve now for something that is hypothetical, so just ignore me. Step 2, validate what needs to be done. Right, so now that our requirements is set out in a neat and orderly fashion, we can now take those requirements and validate them with our client or manager to ensure that we're going to develop the correct thing. I like to start off with an email. The email should be short, to the point, and include bullet points, not use jargon, just keep it as simple as possible. Because to be completely honest, if you receive a wall of text, that doesn't really motivate you to read the email all the way through and to give your full attention. I like to start off with something like this. Good day, client. I'm currently working on the requirement we discussed for the user login report. In order for me to implement this according to your expectation, I wanted to confirm the following of you. You need a report that will display user login on system X. The report should have the following columns, A, B, C, and then in there put in any more details that you want or that you need to find out. Along with the above, I wanted to confirm your expectation in terms of presentation and automation. Do you want us to send out the report via email? And if so, do you require it via attachment? Or should it be embedded in the email? Or do you want to see it on our reporting platform? Thank you, best regards, developer, blah, blah, blah. Now, I know this is a lot of detail, but I mean, you get the basic idea. And also, just remember to run this by your manager. I don't know what your scenario is or what your work environment is like, but be sensitive to that. If you're a junior developer, first run it past your senior or your manager and handle it and take it through the right channels. Ensure that your email is short, well constructed, and straight to the point. As I said before, a wall of text doesn't motivate me to read an entire email, and it's very likely that your client also won't be very motivated. I think the main lesson here is also to be proactive. Proactivity can go a long way in solving future issues and stopping you from making really unnecessary mistakes. Proactivity will also allow us to remove as many blockers before our development even starts. It might take just a few more minutes to type out that email and to populate that Jira ticket, but you'll be so happy that you did it when you're at the end and you don't have to go back and rework a ton of things. The email will also give the client or whoever gave the requirement the opportunity to go through and think through the process so that they can fully understand their own requirement and see beforehand if it might be something that's not really necessary or not really entirely what they wanted or intended when they talked to you about it in the first place. Last step, do it. Here, I don't doubt that you do not need my assistance at all. You're all very great developers and you know what to do. I think there's 3 main lessons here. Number 1, patience. Patience will save you quite a bit of effort in the long run. Don't just run to your PC and start developing it immediately. And if you are one of those people that really live by a prototyping methodology, that's great, but you can still also benefit from ensuring that the requirements are well defined before you start, even on a micro requirement type thing such as this. Lesson number 2, proactivity. Proactivity will remove most blockers before they even exist, and proactivity can save you from unnecessary rework. And number 3, a think first attitude. I'll do an entire video on a think first attitude and even proactivity in the future. But if you think before you do, and I know we basically get paid to think before we do, but sometimes it can become very mechanical, especially if you've been in a position for a while and you know the business and you know what the user wants, and you can just like start going without really thinking through the process. That can end up with you having to rework or missing the requirement or misunderstanding the user's needs even, which doesn't really benefit anybody. I know this might sound a little bit silly, and like I said, especially if you have a prototyping methodology, but remember, it's very often that POC ends up in production and ends up being the thing that's actually used. It sounds dirty, but that's just the way it is. I plan to do a lot more videos like these, so you know what to do. Like, subscribe, all of that jazz. See you next time.